push session for the day. So if y'all have a focus on wanting to work on chest, delts, triceps, this is what we're gonna run through today of my push session. Being now that I'm 26 weeks out, schedule's been a little changing back and forth with looking at different show dates, and this back quarter of the year for the US IFBB Pro schedule for 212s, it's a little thin for US competitions after August. That is the last US show. It's in Texas, which would be ideal to kind of do being in the home state, but for my schedule and having enough time of actually having a true off season, I just wasn't going to compete until, you know, pick a show that fit into my timeline the best. And it really falls into almost into the winter, with the Olympia being December. So looking at the schedule, Romania stood out. And Romania, it's a Tim Gardner show. I've done his shows before. You kind of know what to expect, and also talking with some people that have done Romania before too, they said it was an excellent show, which does make, you know, traveling out of the country isn't ideal, because you're going to a place that you have no idea what food access would be like, what transportation's like, a language barrier might be present, then also just the long flight times that could be there. So it's not ideal, but having the lesser evil of it, so to speak, because it fit with the timeline to bring my best physique. Yes, the last peak week travel and stuff might not be the best because it is a long duration flight from Texas, but no, you know, with that being said, I think if you can account for it really well and get there early, it just won't be an issue. And then also, you know, for Romania, they have wellness, so Renee can compete with me. Also, you know, one of my best friends, Mike Lakamowski, he can go as well because his wife Ashley is a figure pro, and I coach her, so we can go as like a group of friends and go over there to compete in Romania. Which, what a unique opportunity that is, right? To travel internationally with friends and compete should be just an awesome experience. So that's where I'm currently at, 26 weeks out. I've hit a body weight high of 260 this off season, which I haven't been there in, I think it's been like 4 years. Carried it really well, conditioning stayed good. Feel like I really did bring up areas that I want to, which was what we're talking about today, my push session, chest, delts, triceps. I brought body weight down since then just to be a little bit closer to a prep starting point of like 245 pounds. To diet all the way from 260 just within 20 weeks would be completely unreasonable. You need a much longer prep to do so. So did kind of a mini cut, pull fat down, have a maintenance phase, and then go into like a 20-week prep from there. So still have a little bit of time left. So this right now, my currently training is just within close to like a slightly above maintenance volume. It's not quite the full volume load that I'd be using for a normal push session, because right now it's 7 working sets of chest, 6 working sets for triceps, not counting my other pressing movements. If you counted like other like dumbbell presses and things, it would be like 10 sets of triceps for this workout, and then 4 sets of side delt. So that's the total volume. Only working sets are counted, but within the push session, I start with a side delt raise, because for almost any division, whether you're female, male, side delts are always a priority. You cannot have pretty much a big enough side delt. It's just going to add to that taper, accentuate it. And putting side delts first in your training session, it's not going to take away from any of your pressing movements. It's also not such a big movement that it's going to drive a lot of fatigue and have you also like fade out earlier in your session. So let's put what we want to work on as a priority first in the session. So we do laterals first, and I do a machine lateral work up. I'm doing 4 working sets, stay between 10 to 15 reps, and just kind of adjusting the load as I need to stay within that rep target. The first set I hit a little bit higher than 15, but no big deal. As long as we're kind of under 20, we're still very much within a good hypertrophy rep range. And going too low in reps and side delts, you just feel like your joints hurt and you don't really feel like you can get a great connection, and a lot of trap has to take over to move the load. So staying within a, close to that 15 rep range is a good spot to be for a side delt. Then moving on, the next movement I've had in place for the majority of the off season has been a dumbbell flat bench. Just working on mid, lower pec fiber within that plane. The flat angle works well for me. Just as I get braced and their chest kind of rises up a little bit, lines up the humeral path with those lower pec fibers really well. Again, on this one, you don't want that arm completely abducted out to your side at that 90 degrees, because what you end up doing is you line up the front delt fibers really well in that. So you actually want to have that arm adducted, tucked in a little bit, about 45 degrees, but you'll find that the spot, like when you're pressing and you can feel that really good like pec contraction, that's about the angle that you do want to be pressing at. Now, I had been going up to these 150s dumbbell presses, and the handles have been pretty bent. And so if you kick them back wrong, it's just a really hard to find your groove with them. My fault, because I dropped them and kind of bent them up. So I was like, well, I'll do the 160s today. And the 160s were fine, but it was quite a big jump and much lower in reps that I wanted to go for. Usually, like at a minimum, try to hit 6 reps on my first set. Then I'll usually back off and wait and do a higher rep set for these. And the 160s were a little cumbersome, and we probably should have stayed on the 150s, but regardless, it was fine. And then dropped weight, went back to the 130s, and did a little bit more higher rep work on those. So after my dumbbell flat bench, hitting the lower pec fibers, again, chest is a priority point. I then moved to a hammer strength incline press to hit more of the incline upper pec fibers, and still the same applies. Going with that elbow tucked slightly down to where when you're pressing, the line of the humerus is moving right in line with those sternoclavicular fibers. And to do so, I do push my hips out some from the pad, just so I'm at that pressing angle. So you need to align yourself in these machines to fit according to your mechanics. So don't just let the machine dictate how you're going to be lifting. If you can adjust around in it, moving the seat up, moving your hips out, moving your grip to where you need to be to align well to activate the fibers that you want, do so. And if it doesn't work, do a different machine. That one's just not for you. Same thing here. I work up to a heavier set, which something around 8 to 12. Then I reduce load, hit a higher rep set, and those will be my 2 sets on that incline press movement. From there, with chest still as a priority, we've hit a compound movement that hits lower pec fiber, hits upper pec fiber. We can move in to have some isolation work as we're not trying to drive so much more volume into the triceps and cause a lot of also fatigue a lot with the elbow joint. So do a pec deck fly. And the same thing applies here. I'm trying to align these mid to lower pec fibers with the humerus path. And what you find is I scoot the hips out and have the alignment like that. So that's the goal here with these, is just moving the bicep to the pec. But don't think of it as moving the hands together, because what a lot of guys end up doing is they stop the pec contraction and then they just bend at the elbows and touch the hands together. So don't worry about the hands coming together. Just think biceps to pecs. Did 3 sets there. I start with a higher rep set on this because it just feels better doing pec flies, as it can be a little bit precarious doing a pec fly and having a lot of loading in the stretch position. So having a higher rep range, it's more of a safety standpoint, but also we can use a variety of rep ranges for our hypertrophy goals. So you're trying to hit around 15 reps in your first set, stay with the same load, just let the reps drop as you fatigue down. So that wrapped up the priority of the chest volume. And so now I wanted to move into a little bit more tricep work. And what I do for triceps in this session was, it could be just if you want to call it a superset, we could call it that. I'm just going back and forth between doing a work set of tricep push down and a work set of Smith machine close grip bench. You don't have to do it that way. This was actually a time efficiency thing for me that day. You could do you can make a point for doing all close grip bench first, all your push downs first, or flip it around. I wanted to do it this way to see if doing the push down first, because usually it's a little bit more elbow friendly for me to do the push down first and then go to the close grip bench press. So I want to see how that worked out. And also it like required me to use a lot less load on my Smith machine presses, which also is just saving my elbows. So again, this is getting towards like this end of this training block where things are starting to feel a little bit beat up and having to make some adjustments. So a deload is upon me very soon. But what I did here was doing 3 sets, so 3 work sets back and forth, trying to hit 10 to 15 reps on my push down, then something around 8 to 12 on the Smith close grip bench. And as fatigue was setting in, I would reduce load to keep those reps up higher and go about it that way. So that actually wrapped up the workout, which I know, like me saying it out loud now, it's like that doesn't sound like a lot, but with your warm-up sets included, it's plenty adequate volume considering that I train chest twice a week. So that's something to make a point of. If you're hitting chest once a week, maybe you do have more volume allocated to chest within that one session. But what I would say is, like, if within a training session, if you're doing enough sets, you're like, all right, I get a great pump. Muscle feels pretty fatigued. If you're starting to get to a point where volume's so high where you're seeing drastic drops offs in performance, that might be a consideration where you want to move some of that volume to a second training session. So it's just not so much in once, because then after that one training session, how long before you recover, before you could train again? Most people that I knew, they could destroy chest and they're not ever really sore for like a whole week to then only train chest once a week, especially if it's a priority. So with priority body parts, we really want to allocate more volume and build that up over time to cause that muscle group to get more growth. So if that's a priority area, eventually moving volume up to where you're doing it twice a week, maybe even doing it 3 times a week is pretty close for what I have found for pec frequency, but you could be doing this maybe every 3 days and working in that way. But anyway, that's the full layout of my push session. I would love to hear from y'all if you have any training sessions you would like to see from me. I can record those and we can do a walkthrough on those too. I do pull day. I do like a push-pull legs split. So there's only 2 other workouts that I could show. But if y'all want a leg day or a pull day, happy to show those. Just leave me any comments, questions below. And always appreciate y'all following along. Talk to you next time.